Hello and welcome back to my channel. I am Beth and this is Spiral Path Arts, and today we're going to talk about money and budgets. If you are about the same age as I am, or maybe even older, you may have also been raised with the concept that there are certain things polite people don't talk about. We don't talk about money. We don't talk about religion. We don't talk about politics. And heaven forbid you do not talk about sex. And I'll probably add in there, you don't also talk about bodily functions unless you're a 12-year-old boy. And guess what? I'm a 12-year-old boy. But we're not going to talk about politics, religion, or pooping today. What we're going to talk about is planning our money, budgeting our money, how I'm handling my money. So, yes, I do it old school. I'm an old-fashioned girl. I used to do it on my computer with Excel spreadsheets or Quicken or things like that, different programs on Google and stuff. But I decided last year to go back to old school and do it on paper. And I like that because at a glance, I don't have to go open my computer. I don't have to find the file on my phone. I don't have to blah, 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 passwords. I have it right here. And so a little bit of history I'm going to give you first. Not history, but just what brought me to where I am right now. Obviously, I got a divorce in 2021. In earlier summer 2021, I moved out of our house with my husband because we were selling the house. Getting me and the animals out of the house made selling it easier. From that point on, I had to figure out, because I was paying rent and everything, and I knew I was getting a divorce, that I needed to figure this shit out. Now, further back in the Wayback Machine, when we first got married in 1989, obviously between 1985 when I graduated high school and 1989 when I got married, I was on my own for those 4 years in college, but I was living paycheck to paycheck. I was putting $2 of cash in gasoline in my car. So there was no budgeting. There was like, is there money? Yes. Okay, good. If there isn't money, sorry, we're not doing that. But got a job, got married. And my ex and I used to sit down every month at the table with our checkbook and a register and everything and all the little slips and envelopes and write the checks out and mail the checks and do the math in the statements and all the things. And we did that for a while. And then time went on, had kids. I quit working because I was a stay-at-home mom, and I took over all the bill paying because he traveled. I don't know if I've shared that with you in the past, but my ex still does, but for the majority of our marriage, traveled a lot for work. And so I was home running everything myself, and main caregiver for the children, main caregiver for the animals, and caretaker of the home. So spiral path. That's why I can do everything that I do now alone as a single woman, because I already did it once. Anyhow, I was in charge of paying the bills. And then that got to be, quite frankly, just too stressful and just too much. I was doing too many other things. And by then I was doing a lot of it on the computer, using Quicken and things. But it was just a variety of reasons. So I handed that responsibility back to him. Now, when I was doing, I was trying to make communication like, okay, X number of dollars left and these 3 bills, which one do we prioritize? That kind of thing. But when I gave it back to him, there really wasn't communication about the nitty gritty. So that's where I was in 2021 when I separated and ultimately got divorced. Especially once I bought this house in June of 22, I needed to know what everything cost, because I had no idea when I tried to make a budget of what to expect things to cost. I didn't have anybody. The woman who lived in this house prior to me had died. That's why the house was for sale. The house sat empty for 18 months, so the family wouldn't have really reliable information on what it costs to heat and cool and turn the water on and all the utilities in this house. I had I could obviously knew what my cell phone costs and my internet costs, but those kinds of things. So last year's main priority and half of 2022 was just keeping a record and just trying to not run out of money so that I'd have a concept of what it costs to live in this house. Not necessarily the best, way, because then what if I found out it costs 3 times so much to live in this house that I could afford? Well, then there we go. But luckily it does not. And now that I've lived in the house for a year and a half, I have a really good concept of what it costs, my monthly costs. So when I did 2024's budget, I was really able to dial in. And then I was able to really get micro on some of the things. One thing that I did is I went to both Alabama Power, which is my electric bill, and Spire, which is my gas company, and set up budget billing now. I couldn't do that when I first moved in because there wasn't a record of how much. So now that I've had 18 months of service here, they can now make a pretty good guesstimate of what my average monthly costs are. And that's going to help me a lot because, like, for instance, my gas bill was $350 that I just paid in January. But back in May through August, it's $8 a month because the only thing that I use gas for in this house currently is my heat. So average that out over the year, it's gonna make budgeting so much easier. Same with my electric. My electric's kind of high. I never have a $10 electric month. Who does, right? With, you've got things that are always running, right? Your refrigerator and your freezer and, but July, August, and September are anywhere from $300 to $350 a month. Whereas March, April, October, November are under 100 because I'm not running air conditioning during those months, or it's not dark and I'm running lights all the time. So I've set both of those up for average billing, which is going to help me so much. The second thing I did was I went through all of my streaming services, and I share some streaming services with my kids or my ex-husband and things, but not very many. The main ones I cover. And I discovered that I was still paying for like the premium Netflix for 4K Ultra, whatever. Well, my televisions are not 4K Ultra, and why am I paying for this? And I sat down with myself and I decided, you know what? You grew up with a 13-inch black and white television on an antenna, got 3 channels, and sometimes had to stand there and wiggle the antenna until you got it to come in. For 18 years of my life, I can go back to paying for the basic streaming service and have commercials occasionally. Now, if it starts driving me nuts, then I will up it to the mid range, but I don't watch a lot of TV when the weather's nice. So if I'm going to be outside working in the yard, I'm not going to be watching that much television. So we're going to take it down. And I also dropped a couple that I don't watch that often and it's not worth having. And if I was sharing those passwords with family members and they still want it, well, they can pay for it and then give me the password, right? Right. I took my streaming services, I can't remember now, I don't have the math here, but I took them down considerably. And the things like my internet and my water and sewer and my garbage pickup, those things are all, and my dental health insurance, those are all the same every month. They've always have been. So those are easy. The next one that I'm looking at changing, and this is where I need some comments and feedback from y'all if you have this experience. I am considering dropping my Verizon phone service because I have unlimited text and calling and data, and I don't need that because I don't use that much. I'm on Wi-Fi when I'm home, and I'm just not out in the world that much. And I'm considering changing to Mint Mobile because I want, what's his name? Is it Ryan Gosling or the other one? No, I don't. It's not that one guy. Evidently, he'll leave you voicemails every now and then. No, it's not why I want it. But not Ryan Gosling. Who is that guy? It'll come to me. Anyway, I'm thinking of moving to Mint Mobile and saving myself $70 a month on my phone service. But every time I've ever changed my phone service, something has gone wacky, and I end up having to pay like $300 to get out of my own. I know I don't have a contract, but I still I'm scared that something is going to go wonky. But so if you've had experience going from Verizon to Mint and it's been smooth and easy, or it's been problematic, let me know. I did check that Mint has pretty decent service here, at least in Selma proper. And get out in the country, it might be a little sketchy, but I don't go out in the country very often. Okay, then the last of my fixed expenses, and they're actually not last, they're first. These come out before anything else. And that are, I have always, since I've been in charge of my own budgeting, paid myself first. I have taken 10% of my income and taken it out of, before I even, it goes into my checking account, but it goes out of there immediately and into a short-term savings, high-yield savings account. And I've been doing that since June of 2021. Actually, a little bit before that. I started it before I moved out with my dog sitting money. I started this online savings account and started putting money in there because I knew what was coming. So I started that money. And I've had to dip into that money, but it's occasionally when, the scales of the budget didn't balance or an unexpected expense came up, which is exactly why I do that. For 2024, I've added a category, and it's not really an added category. These are 4 bills that I've had to pay for the last 2 years, but I did not put them in the budget properly because they're not monthly. They don't come out of my income monthly. They come out either annually or quarterly or biannually or something like that. And those are my taxes and my insurance. My income taxes, obviously, due in April. Last year they were due in October because we got a little deferment here in Selma because of the tornado, which was helpful. Property tax, which is due by the end of the year in December, which kicked me in the butt this year because I didn't plan for it. I didn't budget for it. And then it came due and there went Christmas. And then my auto insurance and my house insurance. And my house insurance is kind of high because I live in an old house, and getting insurance on old houses is difficult to start with. And so when you find one, you get what you get. So I have taken those 4 items, what they cost me annually, and added them up and divided it by 12. And now I know how much fundamentally I need to put in what would be escrow for those expenses every month. And so now my budget for 2024 is every month that amount of money gets put into the short-term high-yield savings account. Then the pay me first 10% that I have been putting into that savings account is going to go into my mutual fund. And it's a little longer term. I can take money out of that without penalty, but I can't take it out like every other week. I have to, it's a mutual fund. So that's my longer term emergency savings. Or, someday I'm going to have to buy a new car because this one's not going to last forever. Or, something bigger ticket item emergency situation. But the first amount, the taxes and insurance amount, is going to go into short-term savings. And then when those bills come due, April for taxes, May for insurance, June and December for car insurance, and December for property taxes, the money will be in that savings account ready to just pay them. Okay. So that are my fixed monthly expenses and how I manage it. And so what I did is okay, I know what I have to pay. I have to pay every month. That X amount of money has to go for the taxes and insurance. My pay myself first money has to go. My future Beth money needs to go. And then utilities, internet, and streaming services. And I know I will, because of the way I've set it up now, I will know exactly how much all of that is every month. And then that leaves things like eating, feeding my animals, and taking my animals to the vet, and any extra medical bills that I might have, which those are kind of more in that emergency fund situation. So, and then gas and auto maintenance, which is minor for me because my car's paid off, so I don't have a car payment. And then I don't drive very much, and I have a tiny little car that doesn't take much gas. So that is almost a fixed amount because I maybe put one, maybe two tanks of gas in my car a month. Then anything left over after that is my discretionary income that I can spend at Home Depot or Amazon or things like that. The other way I manage all of this is if it can go on my credit card, it goes on my credit card. So I set up all of my utilities and, my garbage payment, obviously all my streaming services with auto payment so that I don't get any late fees. I don't run the risk of something getting turned off because I forgot to pay the water bill this month. And often, a lot of these companies will give you a discount if you do paperless billing and auto pay. They'll give you, sometimes it's up to $10 a month. That'll add up. And also, I have set up the credit card I use regularly for all of this gives me really good points back. I have had that credit card since like 1987 or something like that. So I have a long history with them. When I got divorced, I called them and I said, okay, I have been with you since I was 20 years old, and I need the best deal you can give me. Lowest interest, highest points back. What's the best deal for me? And we worked something out and I got like a better points back. So now I get points on everything I buy. And sometimes I get double points on certain categories and all that jazz. And like every 6 months or so, I have those extra points that I can either put towards the credit card bill if I don't have enough money to pay it, which if I'm doing my work the right way, that doesn't happen. Or I will buy myself something with it. I will use it. That's how I bought the purple velvet couch. It's how I bought a bunch of my Ryobi tools that I have. I used points to buy those. So it's kind of my fun money. And also anything else, I also use that credit card for. I use cash very little. Now, this doesn't work for everyone. You have to be very disciplined. And I'm not necessarily the most disciplined person. And it has come back to bite me in the butt a couple times. But I might not be the most disciplined person, but I'm a very frugal person for the most part. And so when I have cash in my purse, I have no idea where that cash is going. If I use my credit card at the end of the month, I can look and I can say, oh, you spent $100 this month on fast food, which that would be a ridiculous amount for me to spend on fast food. But let's just say, for some reason, okay, well, that's about 5 times as much as you would normally pay for fast food for the month. So what's going on? Let's, nip that in the bud. So, and that is something I need to do that I haven't done yet, is to go through my credit card statements from, I don't know if I have to go through the last 12 months and, divide them all up, really get in the weeds with it, but either 2 or 3 from each quarter. Well, I guess 3 from a quarter is the whole quarter, right? But 1 or 2 from each quarter, or the last 6 months or something, just to kind of get an overall picture of where's that money going. Because I feel like Jeff Bezos has gotten a little bit more of my money than he should have gotten last year. Let's just put it that way, because it's just too easy. So those are the things I need to dial in a little bit more, like how much am I spending on food and where can I save? And I think I have really come a long way in the last 6 months even on figuring out the food situation. Not only am I relearning or learning for the first time how to manage money, I'm also relearning and learning for the first time how to cook for myself, because that was another thing that he did. And Not that I didn't know how to cook, but that was not one of my main skill sets, let's just say. So I think I'm getting much better. I've shared with you a lot of videos, a number of videos now about canning my own food, how to freeze and buy in bulk and make food stretch and eliminate food waste. Eliminating food waste is the number one thing that I am getting almost obsessive about. And I used to throw away so many leftovers. And now it pains me to throw away a leftover if I can't make it into something else or just keep eating the same thing. And yeah. So why am I doing this? Well, because it's providing me a roadmap. It's providing me a snapshot and a roadmap of where I am, where I want to go, and how I'm going to get there. And I'm hoping next summer, I'm going to be able to bring my electric bill down considerably. And that's why I love having this, even though budget billing is going to make paying my bills a lot easier, having at least 1 year of the actual numbers per each month is going to be wonderful. Because then come July, when now I have these honeycomb blinds in this kitchen, but I'm going to make awnings for these windows out here. And maybe, just hopefully, I will be able to get new insulation in this house, in the attic. And I'm going to put curtains on the front porch to provide shade to the west in the afternoons. Let's see. It's a game. How much can I bring these bills down? And that'll be great. Great. But all that to say is, if I don't know, like I didn't know how much the big four, they're not even that big, but they are the big four, my taxes and my insurance, how much it cost me per month. I knew what they cost me annually. And I mean, divide that number by 12. Not that hard to do, but I never did it. And I never wrote it down in pen and ink on a piece of paper and said, oh, that's what that costs me every month. And if the bill doesn't come due every month, I could probably set them up to be paid monthly, but then I'm going to probably pay more. But as long as I take the money out of the budget every month, then it'll be there when it needs to be there. So, have I covered everything? I don't know, because I've had to record this 3 times. Well, one thing I know, I think I said in the first recording that I don't know if I will be able to edit that into this one or it'll be too much. But how did I get where I am? And a comment was asked on an older video, like what I paid for this house. And I'm all about being completely transparent. Plus, if you know where I live and you can look at my house and you can figure out where it is, which isn't very hard because it's a pretty unique house and small town. It's public record how much I paid for this house. So I paid $100,000 for this house and the lot next door in 2022. And I was able to do that because when I got divorced in 2021, we sold the house in Chattanooga, which the value had gone up considerably since we bought it in 2016. And I, in the divorce agreement, got the majority of the money from the house sale. And that put me in a very good position. So I was able to use that money to pay cash for this house, pay off my car, and have a little wiggle room for a few things that I knew this house needed to have done, like the exterior painting and the windows and wall and things in this room that didn't have walls. So if it didn't have walls, it couldn't have windows because there were no walls to put the windows in. All those things that I did a year ago. And then the other, the little things like painting rooms and Facebook Marketplace. But those didn't come out of that big chunk. The rest of that chunk went into a mutual fund, and it's my emergency fund. I also got some IRA money from the ex, and that's in an IRA, and it's untouchable until I am at least 65. If not, if I can make it last, not have to get into there. Well, I might have to get into there at 65 and then not get into Social Security until later. We'll see. That's all something for future Beth to worry about. But that's why today Beth is figuring out how to put more money away in those long-term savings now, even though I'm living on basically a fixed income. And this was something I was saying, I think, in the other recording that didn't work, is that yes, I live basically on my support payments from my ex, which some would argue should be higher than they are, but they're not. And because I never did this in the last 20 years of my marriage, I had no concept of what it would, and plus it costs more for two people to live separately than it does for two people in the same house. It's not like it's half of what our costs. And this house cost is different to heat and cool, and property taxes are different, and all the things are different. So I had no concept of what it would cost me to live month to month when I got divorced. And so even though I came up pretty well with the IRA and the chunk of change from the house sale, if I hadn't done that, I don't know where I would be living right now. I could not afford rent and all the utilities and things because I'm barely getting by. But of course, I would have the $100,000 that I paid for this house somewhere in a bank account. I guess I could have been living off of that. But throwing that at a landlord instead of putting it into this house seemed ridiculous, even though I had to make some major life changes and choices to do that, which fortunately for me have seemed to have be working out so far. Anyhow, that's how I am where I am. And living debt free is life changing. And I know it's not possible for everyone. And it's the sacrifice I've made to not have as much monthly income, is that at least the settlement money was able to put me in this position of being debt free, which is amazing. I looked into before I found Selma and found this house, I was trying to stay in the Chattanooga area or move closer to my Michigan daughter. And I could not find a house that I could afford without a mortgage. And if I had put $100,000 down payment on a house and then had to get a mortgage on top of it, I don't know how I would be surviving right now. Do not know. Now, you're saying, but Beth, you don't have to live on that fixed income. You are an able-bodied, intelligent, college-educated woman of 57 years. You could go get a job. I could. The problem with that is, and I've tried. I tried before I got divorced with mixed success over the years. I mean, since my kids were in high school. I mean, I did have some jobs back in Illinois. I worked. And what I face now with that decision or that choice is that, first of all, what's available here where I live, there aren't a lot of opportunities. There aren't a lot of possibilities. And also, I don't care what anybody tells you, there is age discrimination exists. All of those things make it, a little difficult to even get the interview. And then there's just assumptions made about older people. And I hate to say, I'm not an older person. I mean, you guys see every week the shit I get done around here. So I'm very able-bodied to get it done. But there are days that I might be able-bodied for 2 days, and then for 3 days I'm in bed. So that I have to keep that in consideration too. But the other thing is that the jobs that I know that I could easily get, which would be going back into retail or something similar, would not pay me what my time is worth to me. I would rather save the money on the saving frugal end of things than earn it on the giving my time to somebody else for what they're willing to pay me. And eventually, I'm thinking, if I get myself to act together and really continue on some paths that I've been working on and behind the scenes, that my time will start paying me what I'm worth, and it'll be mine to decide where I'm spending it that time. So, but I have nothing against getting a job at fast food or retail or, something like that at all if I find that I need to. But I would rather spend a couple afternoons doing this so that I have an idea of, well, you know what? You're falling a little behind on your $500 a month, putting it aside for savings. Your insurance bill's coming up next month. Well, then maybe I do need to at least do some temporary work or something like that. I have nothing against doing that. But so far, fortunately, I have been able to spend my time doing things that are more valuable to me. And 2022 and parts of 2023 were my time working on this house was more valuable than working a part-time retail job or fast food job would have been. Being able to do all the demo work and the cleanup work from the tornado rather than paying. I could have gone out to a job during the same amount of time that I was doing that demo for that month. But I would have had to pay somebody to do that demo work. And I don't think it would have come out even. I still think I would have come out at a loss. Same thing with like all the interior painting work that I've done and a lot of the other just handy woman stuff, building shelves in that shed and random things. Now, I have had to pay people for the things I can't do, but because I saved the money elsewhere, I was able to do that. So anyway, trying not to go off on too much of a tangent. That is how I've gotten where I am, and where I know where I want to go. Potentially a future video is the next step that I need to do is my planning, my end of life planning, my estate planning, if you will. I don't foresee me staying in this house till my end of days unless something tragic happens to me in the next 10 years or so. It's too much house for an elderly person. I don't know that I don't know if I'll stay in Selma until my dying days. I might like to get closer to, I would love to get closer to my children, but they got to, that's a whole thing. Do I want to go back to Michigan and deal with snow again? No, not really. And the younger one, I don't know where she's going to end up, probably somewhere in the South. So I'm closer to her here anyway. But estate, my siblings and I are going through that right now with our elderly parents. And thank God for my brother and my middle sister who are handling most of it, talking to the lawyers, talking to the doctors, and dealing with all of that back home. But it has highlighted that even though I will not have a large estate to leave my daughters, I may or may not have a lot of stuff. My intention is enjoy this big house and do everything I can do in it while I can physically do it. And then someday sell it all and get into a little apartment. And me and my cat and my spinning wheel and my sewing machine are going to be in an apartment. And Selma will have had a renaissance, and I will make a ton of money selling this house when the day comes. And I will be able to put it all into my retirement and live off of it somewhere. The Highlands of Scotland or the coast of Maine, or there's snow there too. Funny thing is, I used to love snow, and I don't know why I just don't want to shovel it anymore. That's it. But anyhow, so the next thing to do is some estate planning. Anyway, when we get to that video, we'll get to that video. So if you are interested in that, want to hear my plans for that or how I'm going to go about doing that, leave a comment below. And the other comments that I would like to hear, well, again, anybody with experience going from Verizon to Mint Mobile, what has been your experience? If you had advice, financial advice to give someone, what would be your number one financial advice to give someone? Especially, not to discriminate, but I think historically men were given more credit and more information about managing money. And that's a very broad statement. And I know lots of women who are very good at managing money. And I will say a lot of mine is willful ignorance. It was not something I had the time or bandwidth mentally to grasp or deal with when I was younger. And like I said, I was raised with the, you just don't talk about money. And especially girls don't need to know about money because dad's going to take care of it. When dad's done taking care of it, your husband's going to take care of it. So why worry about it? That didn't serve me very well. I don't think it serves anyone very well. So it's not your money, it's his money. So why do you need to know where it's going? Yeah, that's my advice. That's all bullshit. Don't believe any of that. That's my advice. But if you have advice, especially if you wanted to give extra advice, if you had advice to give someone who is like, say, 18 or teens through early 20s, like high school through getting out of college, what's the advice you would give someone in that age range? And then from your early career years to your early raising family years, whatever those years might be. So, mid, late 20s through mid to late 30s. Best advice, like those working years where if you're going to be making income, that's when you're going to be making the most of your income. And then advice for as your kids are, if you have children, they're getting older, college, things like that. And then you're approaching retirement. And so what's your advice? And if you have any advice for me, somebody who in a way is starting over in my mid 50s with all of this. Fortunately, I acknowledge that I am starting in a pretty good place because I am debt free, like I said. And because of the choices that I made and where I'm living and how I'm living, I am able to live on that fixed income pretty well. Yeah, because there's a lot of coulda, shoulda, wouldas about that, but it's all water under the bridge at this point. Share with me what you think and what you know, and what advice you might have for others. I thank you so much for being here. I hope this was helpful. I hope this was, I think sometimes just sharing our experiences is as valuable as sharing knowledge or sharing advice. I'm not an expert. This is what I'm learning. I have said before, the best person to learn something from sometimes is the person who just learned it themselves. I've said before, I'm not the best knitting teacher because I don't remember learning to knit. I learned to knit when I was like 7 or 6 or something. I think I learned to knit before I learned to read. I don't remember what it was like to be a beginner. But someone who just learned and is very good at it and is learning can share what they're learning in a way that another new learner, adult learner can understand. And that's where I am with this kind of thing, is I'm either relearning it or learning a new way or learning it for the first time. And I think it's important. And I also think that some of these taboo subjects are things that are important to talk about. There's a lot of mystery around. And if we know, she can do it. She can live. And I didn't go into the numbers specifically. There's no need. I'm pretty transparent about those things, but my situation is different. I could not live on what I live on, my monthly expenses, if I lived back in the Chicago area. This house would cost, first of all, this house would cost a ridiculous amount of money almost anywhere else in the country. So anyway, not to go down another rabbit hole and another tangent, but I think it's important to share this information. So I hope it was helpful to you, and thanks for being here. Thank you to welcome to all my new subscribers, and thank you so much to all of you who have been with me for a long time. I really appreciate it. And if you have a moment to like, share, or if you haven't subscribed, subscribe, because this is what we talk about here. We talk about, we don't talk about finances. We don't talk about money all the time, but we just talk about living our life and being real and my spiral path. What I've learned 20 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 minutes ago, and how they all are coming back around, and I'm relearning them or I'm reusing old skills, and how life is a spiral path. And so, but another thing that I'm realizing about a spiral path is not only it's the stuff that I learned 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago that's coming back around, and I'm being able to use it in a different way or experience it and see it in a different light. But I'm also realizing that that spiral continues on into the future, into infinity. These decisions that I'm making today and the knowledge that I'm learning today about my finances, about my diet, about my health, about things, those things will spiral back around. And a decade from now, the money that I put into long-term savings will be there for me with interest. And the knowledge, the money that I have saved by not eating fast food and prepared foods, and the health benefits of raising my own food and preparing my own food and living sustainably will come back around to me 10 years from now by being potentially healthier and my land being more productive or more valuable because I have a huge organic garden on it, which is coming up, or my house is more valuable because I took the time and the money to improve it when I could and do what I could to make it more energy efficient. And then if you continue that spiral out, once I become an ancestor, those in my future line, which might be nieces and nephews and not grandchildren, but even non-blood relatives who come along, if I have done my part to make the world more sustainable through all ways of being more sustainable, and budgeting your money is a way of being sustainable, but also, environmentally sustainable, then I will leave a legacy for those people. I might be able to leave money for my children or groups of people that are important that I'm able to support when I die. If I have planned properly now, the spiral will continue on into the future and be able to provide for others that aren't even maybe here yet. So that is what the spiral path is about. Learning how we can use what we know, what we experienced in the past, what's come back around, but also how we can continue being sustainable into the future and continue our spiral path and find joy along the way. That's always key, finding joy. And realizing that I have a lot less money than I thought I did doesn't bring me a lot of joy, but now knowing the knowledge brings me joy, that I can sit back and breathe and go, okay, well, now you know what you need to do. You either need to save. If you need $100 next month that you don't have, you either need to figure out how to cut $100 out of the budget next month, or you need to find a way to bring in another $100. And that could be some of these odd jobs that I do that bring me joy and bring me money, which is key. Or, okay, well, you're just not going to go to any fast food or the liquor store or the fabric store or Amazon for the next 6 weeks and eat out of your pantry and your refrigerator in your freezer for the next 6 weeks and see if that brings you that $200 that you needed or whatever. And we can do it. I can do it. And then it becomes a game. So anyway, again, I started to say goodbye. That's what we call a Michigan goodbye. You say goodbye 3 times and then finally somebody says, well, watch out for deer. And you hit the road. So take an umbrella, watch out for deer, and we'll see you next week.